Got a few more steps to do before we throw out the Zoysia seed. Gonna be putting some soil amendments down today. I've got 8 bags of 40-pound dolomitic limestone. Picked it up at Tractor Supply. I've got some starter fertilizer, 18-24-12. Gonna be shooting for about 1 pound of phosphorus per 1,000 square feet with that starter fertilizer. And then I've got a couple gallons of RGS left over, and we're gonna run the max rate on that. So starting off here today, I'm just laying off my mulch beds. I'm using a hose pipe and also a string line to lay them off. And you can kind of see this orange paint going down through there. So I just chose to pull off the back of the house and make a perfectly parallel to the back of the house. And then whenever we establish the mulch bed, we'll probably weave it in and out, make it look a little bit more natural. So when I stepped it off right here is where I need my head to be. My funny pipe sticking up over here, but it's probably several feet long, so that's no problem to get it over here. That's why I like using this funny pipe as opposed to like those swing joints. Plus you can power rake right over the top of them. We're gonna be running a 1.5 nozzle in these half circle ones, and then the full circle ones will get a 3.0 nozzle. That's what works well for the amount of water that I have. I like to set my heads perfectly level with the dirt, but these will be in a landscape bed, so it's not really as crucial. But if you're real mowing or you plan on dragging sand in the future, this basically needs to be perfectly level with the dirt or slightly below it. So now we need to get somewhat adjusted. These older ones have been hit with the Aera-vator and mower and everything else. They really don't turn real well. On a new one, you can just spin it around with your fingers. But on these, sometimes you have to pull up on them and do it. One thing I forgot to mention before we got started, because I did it a couple days ago, but you need to flush your system out before you set any of your heads. That way you don't clog your nozzles up. We're just going to continue this process on down through the wood line and out through the middle of the yard and get all these heads set. First up, we're going out with some dolomitic lime. Picked up 8 bags today, thinking I had a little bit more square footage than what I had, but we're running about 6,200 square feet, so I'm going to go ahead and put out all 8 bags anyway. And all this is based on a soil test. Don't just go out there throwing out lime just because everybody tells you to or you think you need it. You really need to get your soil tested to see what your pH is. We've also got some RGS in the tank. We're going out with about 6 ounces per 1,000 square foot. That's one pass wide open with the permagreen, and we're about half a hopper down, so probably actually going to end up being 4 passes total to get all this lime out. Next thing on the list is a starter fertilizer. This is just a 18-24-12, and I'm going to shoot for about 1 pound of phosphorus per 1,000 square feet. Pretty easy way to figure that out is just take the number, divide it by 2, and that's how many pounds of whatever element you're trying to figure out is in the bag. So we got 24% phosphorus, so there's 12 pounds of phosphorus in a 50-pound bag, and we're going to go at 1 pound per 1,000. We got 6,000 square feet, so we're going to go with 25 pounds of product, which is going to be 6 pounds of phosphorus. For this, you're just trying to get pretty close to what you figured, so we're going to shoot for about half the bag. If we come up a little bit extra in the hopper, or we need to add a little bit more to the hopper, it's no big deal. We're going to be running this on about a 16 on the fertilizer hopper. This translates over to a Lesco walk behind as well. I think we'll add a little bit of green pop to the tank as well. I honestly don't know if it makes a difference or not, but it seems like a liquid application is more available than a granular that you have to really get watered in and activated. So we're going to run out with some liquid as well on top of it just to see if it helps. Well, we ran out of time yesterday. We're at June the 21st, 2022, and today we're going to be putting out the Zenith Zoysia grass seed. Yesterday we basically did all our soil amendments and got the fertilizer down and the lime, and today we're going to aerate that down into the dirt and kind of get it mixed in. If you had a tiller, this would be a good place to use a tiller. The only thing I would suggest is having some type of roller or something to come back afterwards and really firm it back up, because a tiller really just makes it too loose. And what I did notice on my newest renovation after I tilled it is I had a lot of unevenness that I had to correct with sand this year. One thing to note about this Aera-vator, when you run it over the smooth surface that we created with this power rake, it's definitely going to steal some of that smoothness away, but I think the trade-off is worth it. One thing I always like to mention is this Aera-vator is not a necessary step, it's not a requirement. For me, since I have it on hand, I'm going to use it. There's a side-by-side comparison, so you can see the difference here. I'm down maybe about a ½ inch in this loose soil, which is definitely sufficient. And then you come over here and we're down probably 3 inches. So I've used this Aera-vator for a lot of different purposes. One of the biggest ones I've used it for is overseeding fescue. For me, I throw it out on bare dirt, especially on a bare dirt renovation, and then you'll run over top of it with the Aera-vator, do a single pass over it, and it'll actually set that seed down into the soil. Won't be using that for this purpose today because the Zoysia seed, Bermuda, all your warm season grasses really need to be right near the soil surface. It can't be quite buried deep as what a fescue can. So we're not going to be using it for that purpose today, but we are going to be using it to set the nutrients down in the ground. And for me, that's kind of key. It gets the nutrients down into the root zone and seems to be just a little bit overall more efficient for the plant. It also helps if you get a heavy rainstorm, those nutrients that you just got laying on top of the hard pan or however you got it, if you don't have existing grass to kind of hold it there, those nutrients may just wash away. So I like to put them down into the soil, and that's what this Aera-vator does for us today. It also tends to loosen up the soil a little bit and gets rid of that slick surface, which you know, it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but when you get a heavy rainstorm, it gives somewhere for that water to be absorbed, and it doesn't quite run as bad as what it would if you had power raked it and left it kind of hard pan on top with just a little bit of a loose material. You can see below these flags has not been aerated. All that's what's getting seeded. It has been aerated. I'm gonna go get my chain drag and we're gonna drag over top of this and really smooth it up and give us a blank slate to start with. And then we're gonna go get the seed and we're gonna start broadcasting the seed over the top. This chain drag is just made out of a piece of chain link fence. I think it's an 8-foot section. And what I found over the years is the really long sections tend to kind of drift behind you when you make your turn. So I doubled this over and made it about a 4-foot section. And then I've just got a couple like J hooks on it connected to a board to kind of keep it straight. And then it's just tied to the back of my permagreen. I like using my permagreen for this step. It's got a really light footprint, so it doesn't really compact your areas where you're going over it and leave like real definite tire tracks like you'll see the Ventrac do. Here's our final product. And I'd say I'm quite impressed with how smooth it got. And yeah, we may have a little bit of settling, unlike if we had just power raked it and threw the seed out. But hopefully this little bit of loose dirt on top will really help retain some water, especially during a heavy rainstorm. It may prevent it from doing a lot of runoff. Let's just take a look at what we got here. So we dig down till I hit hard dirt. We're probably about 1 inch down. But one thing to note about this is if you walk on it, it doesn't leave a footprint. That's the difference between this and tilling your ground. It's not super soft, but it is soft enough to bury a seed down in. So to me, that's absolutely perfect. This is one of the areas that my dog likes to play in, and I want to try to keep her out of it during this germination process. So for the next probably 2 months, I have this little makeshift fence up, and won't keep her out of it, but it'll definitely deter from going in it if I'm out here with her. I'm going pretty cheap on this. These are some fiberglass flower stakes I've had on hand, and then I'm just going to use some masonry string and go around it, make 2 or 3 rows around it, and then maybe hang some flagging tape in between to kind of get the dog's attention. I was going to use caution tape originally, but it's about 40 bucks for a 1,000-foot roll, and I just didn't really want to spend the money. This really is the last thing we're going to do. I'm going to run this cultipacker over it, and this is a pretty heavy cultipacker, but realistically, I don't think it packs that much. I mean, this is pretty dry soil. It probably will pack a little bit, but it's still gonna leave a very good seed bed on top. You can see that on camera. This is what I was after with the Coulter Packer. It's got basically like a slit seeder would do, cut screws in, and the grooves are probably about, I'm gonna say about a ½ an inch deep or so. Still, you can see how loose this is. I mean, it's not compacted at all. But what I'm after is those slits that go down through there, and that's gonna be perfect depth for this Zoysia seed. And the way I know that is because this is what I did on my first 2 renovations, and they came up wonderfully. And you'll see them actually come up in little rows. I appreciate y'all watching. The only thing left to do now is put out the seed, and then we're gonna pull the drag mat over the top, and then we're gonna start up the irrigation and get all the coverage correct on it. Since we reset all these heads, we gotta get the overlap and the arc circle correct on them. And then we're just gonna start watering, and we'll pick up from there on the next video. That's probably all I'm gonna do for this video. I'm gonna do a separate video that's going to be strictly on seeding the Zenith Zoysia grass, since that seems to me the most popular asked question. We'll do a dedicated video on how I mix it up and broadcast it and coverage and all that stuff. So appreciate y'all watching. If you got any questions or comments, leave them below.